The old cabin. I never thought much about my late-night delivery job until that night. The night I got the order to the old cabin. The order came in just as I was finishing my shift. A large pizza with extra toppings, a few drinks, and a note. Deliver to the back door. Knock 3 times. At first, I was tempted to decline. The delivery address was on the outskirts of town, deep into a wooded area, but I needed the tips, and the customer had already added a generous one online. So, I accepted the order, loaded up the car, and started my drive. It was a quiet night, the road dark and mostly empty. As I drove deeper into the woods, the streetlights disappeared, replaced by looming trees and winding paths. My GPS kept rerouting as if it couldn't pinpoint the location. Finally, after several wrong turns, I found a small dirt road that led to the cabin. The cabin itself looked ancient. It had a weathered exterior, and the windows were so dark that I couldn't tell if anyone was inside. I grabbed the food, made my way to the back, and knocked 3 times, just like the note said. The door creaked open almost immediately, but no one was there. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. No response. Thinking the customer might have been playing a prank, I set the bag down and turned to leave. "You're late," a voice said, cold and sharp. I spun around, but no one was there. My heart pounded as I stepped backward, tripping over something. When I looked down, I saw a second delivery bag. It wasn't mine, and it looked old. The logo was from a pizza place that had shut down years ago, and the bag itself was caked in dirt and mold. Before I could process what I was seeing, a faint glow came from inside the cabin. The door slowly creaked wider, revealing a dimly lit room. I could make out shapes of furniture, but there was something else, a figure sitting at a table. It was hunched over, unmoving. "Hello? Your food's here," I called out again, my voice trembling. The figure turned its head slowly toward me. Its eyes glinted in the low light, and it smiled, a wide, unnatural grin. I froze, unable to move or breathe. Then it whispered, "Stay for dinner." That was enough. I dropped everything and ran back to my car, not even looking back. As I drove off, my GPS kept rerouting again, sending me in circles. It felt like the forest was swallowing me whole. Finally, after what felt like hours, I made it back to the main road. The next day, I tried to explain what happened to my manager, but when I showed them the address, they just looked at me blankly. "That road doesn't exist," they said. But the worst part? When I checked my delivery bag later that night, there was a receipt inside for an order I didn't place, and the timestamp, it was from 10 years ago. Two, the delivery no one asked for. It was nearly midnight when I got the call. A strange last-minute delivery sent me up to a secluded area on a hill just outside town, a place I didn't recognize. GPS barely worked, and there were no signs of life on the long, winding road. When I finally reached the house, it felt wrong from the start. An old, crumbling place hidden among overgrown trees, the fog thick and suffocating. There was no name on the delivery slip, just an instruction to leave the package on the front door. I parked the truck a few yards away and noticed the silence almost immediately. Unnatural and heavy, as though the air itself was waiting for something. I walked up the uneven stone path, and as I reached the front door, I could see the old brass knocker gleaming under the weak moonlight. I knocked 3 times. Silence. Then, from inside, I heard something, faint but clear. "Leave it inside." It wasn't just the wind. It was a voice. I froze. No one was supposed to be home. I looked around, expecting someone to step out of the shadows, but all I saw was the fog swirling around the yard. Hesitant but determined to finish the job, I walked in. The door creaked open on its own, a rush of cold air biting my skin as if something unseen was trying to pull me inside. I stepped into a dark foyer, the door softly closing behind me. The house smelled old, damp, and the silence was so thick I could almost taste it. As I ventured deeper, I spotted something unsettling, a rocking chair in the living room, moving ever so slightly, as though someone had just left it. I felt it, eyes watching me from the dark, but no one was there. The cracked mirrors on the walls distorted the house, their shattered reflections adding to the feeling of being hunted, like I wasn't alone. I turned to leave, but when I tried the door, it wouldn't open. Panic gripped me as I pulled at the handle, but it was stuck, something inside holding me there. Then I heard it, the whisper again. This time, it was unmistakable. "Leave now." I spun around. The chair was rocking faster now, and there, in the shadow, was a figure. His face hidden, but his eyes, they glowed, faint but piercing. And the smile on his lips, it was unnatural, cold. "Leave, and don't come back," he whispered. I didn't wait for another word. I bolted, grabbing the door with frantic hands and tearing it open. As I rushed back to the truck, the fog had thickened, completely swallowing the house from view. I didn't sleep that night. The image of those glowing eyes haunted me, and I never returned to that house. Some deliveries are better left untouched. Three, the cemetery order. You'd think a cemetery would be the last place for a delivery, but that's exactly what happened to me one cold October night. I was just about to clock out when an order popped up. The address? Green Hollow Cemetery. It gave me chills, but I figured it was a prank. Maybe some teens messing around. Still, the tip was too good to pass up, so I accepted it. The drive there was uneventful, but the moment I arrived, I felt a strange heaviness in the air. The cemetery gates were wide open, creaking gently in the wind. The order instructions told me to go to the statue in the center, so I grabbed the bag and started walking. The paths were uneven, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp near the entrance. As I moved deeper into the cemetery, the world seemed to grow quieter. Even the sound of my footsteps felt muffled. Finally, I reached the statue. It was an old, weathered angel with its head bowed and hands clasped in prayer. Beneath it was a small bench. "Hello? Your order's here," I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I set the bag down and snapped a photo for proof, but just as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A new message. "Don't leave yet." I spun around, my heart pounding. The bag was gone. In its place was a small, folded note. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up and unfolded it. The note simply said, "Follow the light." Suddenly, a faint glow appeared in the distance, like a lantern swaying back and forth. Against every instinct, I followed it. The light led me to a row of old, crumbling headstones. One of them stood out, newer than the rest, with a single name etched into it. David Carter. That was the name on the delivery order. Before I could react, the ground beneath the headstone began to shift. Slowly, a hand emerged, pale, dirt-streaked, and impossibly long. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. The hand grasped at the dirt, pulling up the rest of the figure. Its face was gaunt, its hollow eyes fixed on me. I ran, faster than I've ever run in my life. The glow of the lantern followed me, moving faster than it should have. When I finally reached the gates, I slammed them shut behind me and jumped into my car. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the lantern flicker out, leaving the cemetery in total darkness. I quit that job the next day. But sometimes, late at night, I still check the app. And every now and then, I see an order from David Carter, waiting to be delivered. Don't leave in silence, like subscribe and ring the bell. Each gesture stirs the shadows, calling them closer for the next story.